If you make these 3 mistakes, you might become an atheist. We wouldn't want that, so this video is going to be very important. Pay attention.
Pitaya, jabuticaba, rambutan, durian. What do you think I'm talking about?
Well, durian's a fruit. I've seen that in the store once or twice. Pitaya, I think, is also a fruit. And following that pattern, the other 2 words sound plausible as the names of fruits. So, fruits, I guess? Odd way to start the video. Will eating these fruits turn me into an atheist?
Try to take a guess, and I'll mention what these are shortly.
Oh, I did already. Sorry, it's awkward.
But first, let's talk about the world of babies.
Ah yes, of course. Baby world. This is going exactly how I expected from an apologetics video.
For example, think of a baby.
Okay, give me a second. Alright, got it.
When they see a new person, they carefully focus on them for many seconds. Or when they see the rain for the first time, they'll glance with excitement and astonishment. They're actually amazed with anything they see.
Yeah, that's because they live in a state of complete and total ignorance and have no idea how to even assemble their visual input into some sort of coherent picture. I'm already getting a bad feeling about where this is going. Please don't start telling me that I have to start trying to make myself feel as ignorant, incompetent, and overwhelmingly surprised at everything as a baby is. Actually, no, I phrased that wrong. Please do that. If you tell me that's an important state to be in to keep believing in your God, I'm gonna laugh my ass off.
Imagine you wake up one day.
Okay, give me a second. Got it.
And all your memory is completely erased. You're like a newborn baby again.
Wow, with the mobility, dexterity, and strength of an adult, I would die immediately. Like, unless I had a caretaker or something.
Like a baby, you'd be astonished by everything.
Yeah, I would be incapable of even distinguishing between things I should put in my mouth and things I shouldn't. I'd probably die trying to suck my own toes.
Imagine seeing snowflakes for the first time. You'd get excited and probably look up at the sky and think, where are these flakes coming from?
No, I'd think...
Or when you looked up at the sky and saw fluffy clouds, you'd wonder how they just float there by themselves.
No, I wouldn't. The concept of how things happen would not occur to me if I were a mental baby.
You'd live with the thrill of discovering new things.
If you want to call it a thrill, okay. I would call it a severe mental disability. There's a reason babies tend to grow up into adults, and that's because this is not a desirable state to be in. It's a state of incredible helplessness to the point of dangerousness. You wouldn't even be able to feed yourself.
So the main question is this. Why is it that we don't feel any sense of amazement when we're currently going through these events?
That would be because the definition of amazement is overwhelming surprise or astonishment. And the definition of astonishment is overpowering wonder or surprise, amazement. Very helpful with the circular definitions there. But yeah, you're not going to have your socks knocked off with surprise by something that you've seen 100 times before. That would be incredibly disadvantageous, and it would make you into a joke of a human. Like, imagine your friends driving you around in their car and you're like, oh my god, what? How are we moving so fast? What is happening? Whoa, what am I sitting on? Wow, what is this material? Look outside the window. Everything's moving by so fast. What is happening? What is that blue stuff up there? What is that? I can't believe this. I can't even process what's happening right now. This is incredible. Nobody does that. You don't do that. Neither do I. Muslim, atheist, it doesn't matter what your position on those questions is. You're not acting like that, and you're not acting like that for good reason. You would never accomplish anything, including worshiping your God or going to the mosque or whatever it is you do on a day-to-day basis. You'd never finish cooking a fucking meal. You'd be too amazed by the spatulas and mushrooms. It'd be like you're on a constant, never-ending acid trip.
For example, why are we not astonished by the fact that rain is filtering down such fluffy clouds?
Okay, I know what all the words mean there, but the way you put them together, I don't know what you're asking me. The rain is filtering down clouds? I don't know, whatever. Yeah, clouds are neat. Look, you don't have to lose interest in things. You don't have to look up at the clouds and feel nothing. When you grow up, you don't have to lose your sense of curiosity or wonder. You don't have to filter these things out of your consciousness at all times. This is why you get people like meteorologists who are very, very interested in watching clouds over long periods of time and understanding what they are and why they're there and how they work. But you're still not going to be bowled over with surprise every time you look at them, and then 2 seconds after that, and then 2 seconds after that, and then 2 seconds after that too. If that's your expectation for how people should be operating, they're not going to meet your expectation, and nor should they if they have any life goals or interest in anything beyond the fucking clouds. It's pretty hard to read the Quran if you can never get past the stage of being absolutely mind-blown by the fact that paper exists exists, and ink exists, and words exist. At some point, you're going to have to filter some stuff out to focus on something else. And frankly, if at any point in your adult life you look at the Quran and you are overwhelmingly surprised by the existence of ink and paper, as you said, the likely explanation is that you've had a severe episode of amnesia and you desperately need help.
Or a human made up of flesh having dozens of emotions, laughing, crying, getting excited. Why don't these amaze us?
Because gaping with incredulity at something like that would be absurd and completely counterproductive for anything you ever want to do. And again, having a strong interest in it is a totally different thing. Spending a lot of your time thinking about it, learning about it, is totally valid. And again, that's the origin of several fields of science. That interest in why things are the way they are and how they work. But expecting people to be as mindlessly amazed as a baby at everything they ever see is way beyond unreasonable.
Ultimately, you're made out of substances, right? Why do you laugh? Why do you feel emotions? You're just matter.
Are you asking that question seriously? If so, you would have already gone and read a book on human biology, but you didn't, did you? So you don't seem to care that much. Why would I explain it to you? Besides, you'd need a stack of pretty thick textbooks to get a good idea about how that works. I'm not going to be able to do that for you, nor do I want to, nor would you watch it if I did. You'd just look at the length of the video and the amount of effort you'd have to put in to actually learn something and start mumbling something about the Quran. Waste of time.
This means there is a soul that exists beyond this matter.
So your argument is, how does that happen? Therefore, soul, you were too lazy even to include the part. That is an incredible level of don't give a shit.
And that's how we can feel these feelings.
Oh, so how does that happen? Soul? That's how. Wow, I mean, how could I not believe you? Your explanation is so thorough and detailed and evidence-based and reasonable and certainly leaves no room for questions.
So why don't these thoughts astonish us?
Wait, what thoughts? The soul stuff? Believe me, if it turned out that were true, that would astonish me.
These are those of you that might say, what's wrong with this? We learn how these events occur, and therefore there's no need to be amazed anymore.
Not only is there no need to be amazed, there's a need not to be amazed, which is why both you and I are not amazed. At least not in the sense that you're putting forth. Yeah, okay, in the sort of the colloquial sense of, that's amazing, wow, neat. Yeah, fine. But not in the, I just had a severe amnesic episode and now I'm mentally a baby way. No, there's no need for that. There's no use for that. That is not a good thing. It's very, very good that our brains adapt to what we see and lose that kind of reaction. And by the way, this has nothing to do with learning how these events occur. What we're talking about here is just getting used to these events enough that we can function. The most basic human function, the ability to proceed through your life in any way, which you appear to do despite the fact that you're scolding other people for doing it. And apparently this is the first mistake that if you make it, you might become an atheist. Having the mind of an adult capable of avoiding extreme surprise at every mundane occurrence around you. I never thought I'd hear a religious person talk down religion this much.
But do we really learn? Or do we just get used to it?
Well, we're not even talking about learning yet. I mean, obviously, okay, it's about learning that these things happen, but not how they happen. That's way beyond what we're talking about. So I guess in this case, the answer is we just get used to it. Apparently, that's a bad thing.
Indeed, this is not in fact learning.
It is, it's just not very advanced at all. The level of learning a baby does is pretty basic.
It is growing accustomed to things.
By the way, the dubbing is really weird for this video. I just cannot picture that voice coming out of you.
And it's the first thing that lets us forget about God in our daily life. Habit.
I don't think that's the right word for what you're talking about, but okay. Just a translation issue, no problem.
This is the most dangerous situation for those who seek evidence for the existence of God, and for those who want to know Him. And one of the several reasons why atheists are atheists. You know that thing your atheist friend mentions all the time? I'm looking for a creator, but I can't find him anywhere? This is the reason. Because of our customary environment and seeing the same habitual events, we tend to say, even though the world is filled with so much proof, hence why we need to recognize this disease called habit and find a cure.
Another translation issue. It was fine towards the start, but now we're starting to slip. That sentence there just kind of ended in the middle without finishing the thought. We tend to say, even though the world is filled with so much proof, period. But anyway, what you're saying seems to be that if you're not amazed by everything the way a baby is, that means you grow so accustomed to your environment that you can no longer see the evidence that's all around you for the existence of God. That brings up a number of problems. One of the main ones being that, are you saying that the reason these things are evidence for the existence of your God is not because there's actually a good argument based on them to lead you to your God's existence, but just that you're ignorantly, babyishly surprised at every turn by everything, and then you just kind of go, well, that's surprising, therefore it's God for some reason. I mean, that's not even God of the gaps. That's not having a lack of an explanation, a lack of a idea how it happens. A constantly amazed, surprised baby isn't thinking about that. We're not at the stage of thinking about how to fill gaps in our knowledge. No, we're at the stage of, I'm just surprised. That's where the cognition ends. It's just, whoa, therefore God. And this is the kind of thing you need to stay a Muslim, is it? This is the sort of reasoning your religion is based on? The sort of reasoning that if you stop using it, you're suddenly at high risk of becoming an atheist? This is the kind of reasoning you have to be willing to employ if you want to see evidence of God everywhere, and otherwise you're not going to see evidence of God everywhere? In fact, as you say, you're not going to see it anywhere? Okay, maybe it's a good thing then, this risk of becoming an atheist, because this is not a reason that's likely to make you believe true things if you start using it all the time. Although I guess let's be real, that's probably not a concern here. The guy's arguing that you should strive to have the mind of a baby. I don't think solid reasoning and truth are priorities.
Not just our atheist friends, but we too as Muslims need to cure ourselves from this disease so we can get to know our Creator better.
Goo goo gaga, me believe now. Me put on diaper to feel closer to Allah.
Now let's come back to those strange names from the beginning of the video. Some of you might have guessed already. These are the names of fruits.
Hey, I got it. Do you think I still would have got it if I said, whoa, what are these pictures on this screen, man? What are these sounds? What's this thing making sounds at me? Whoa, what's this pink thing in front of my face? Whoa, what are these sounds coming out of me? Whoa, what's me? Whoa, I'm some kind of black blob. Whoa, I feel neat. Wow. I don't think that would have helped when figuring out what the words meant. I also don't think it would help me become a Muslim, but apparently it would. I think I've been very misled for many years on what exactly it means to be part of a religion.
For example, pitaya is also known as dragon fruit.
Oh, I've had that. I don't like it.
It can be found in abundance in Thailand and Indonesia.
That's true, mainly because of the climate, but they're actually native to the Central America kind of area.
And it is sometimes called strawberry pear.
I guess I can see why from the appearance, sort of. Doesn't taste like that though, it's kind of blah. I don't know, maybe mine wasn't ripe enough or something. It's very seedy.
Another fruit is jabuticaba. Interestingly, this fruit grows directly from the trunk of the tree. In fact, many people use it as a decorative plant in their homes.
Neat. I am astonished. Whoa!
Another interesting fruit is the rambutan. Due to the hair covering its skin, it resembles a unique living creature. Its flesh is pale, yellow in color, and not easy to bite into.
Wow, again, this is really neat. I've never seen this fruit before. It looks kind of like a hairy lychee. I guess God exists then.
Another one is the forbidden fruit, durian. It's known as the king of fruit. We can call it the forbidden fruit because due to its very bad smell, it's forbidden in hotels and planes.
Wow, a fruit that's forbidden in public places because it's so stinky and gross. That's super neat, and therefore evidence for God.
Even though first-timers don't like it in the beginning, later on they can't get enough of its delicious taste.
Okay, I don't think I've ever had it. I believe you. Sure, why not? What is the point of any of this?
We have one more interesting fruit. The apple.
Yeah? Okay, wow, an apple. I'm acting as though I'm amazed like a baby at all of these. Yes, there are fruits, and some of them I've heard of, and some of them I haven't heard of. Something God, apparently.
You might say this is just a typical apple.
Well, I mean, unless there's something very unusual about this apple, it literally is a typical apple.
But the real question is, just as we were amazed by the other four fruits...
Was I? I'm aware that there are fruits, and I'm aware that there are some fruits I haven't seen yet. If you want to tell me some facts about the fruits, I might be interested, but you're not doing that in good faith. You're not doing it because you're passionate about fruit, you're doing it because you're passionate about propagandizing your religion. So I'm not really interested in what you have to say about it. You're not even interested in what you have to say about it. Why should I be?
Why don't we feel the same amazement with the apple?
I feel equally amazed at the apple as I do with the other ones. It's fruit. It's good to have the information of what types of fruit exist. If you want me to know something about them, if you're really interested in the fruit and you really want to tell me something about the fruit, I'll listen to you. Maybe I'll be interested too. I've read books about trees, flowers, fungi. If you got a good one about fruits, I'll read that too, and I'll probably be interested. But I'm sorry, I'm not going to pretend like I'm a baby dumbstruck at the existence of fruit. That does nothing to help me understand the nature nature of fruit, the origin of fruit, details about the fruit, even basic things, the appearance of the fruit, the taste of the fruit. If I'm completely consumed with amazement at all times, I can't do any of that. Not with any care or accuracy. That's just living by pure emotion. That doesn't help with this. But of course, you're not actually interested in me understanding the fruits you're presenting. It's not about the fruits. You couldn't care less how much or how little I know about these fruits or whether I even know they exist. There's only one thing you're interested in putting in my head, and it's not fruit facts.
Just as we are amazed by the jabuticaba fruit growing from the trunk of a tree, why aren't we amazed with one growing out of a branch?
They're both neat. Why are you making these assumptions about what I think about fruit? Do you think you're a fruit psychic?
Ultimately, are they both not made from wood?
Well, the fruits are not made from wood, no, but they grow out of a plant that is a woody plant. I mean, you'd call blackberries a woody plant, right? But yeah, no, the fruits are not made from wood. I don't really understand the question. Does that change the amazement value? Are we evaluating the relative amazingness of fruits on a scale of how much or how little they're made from wood? That wouldn't be the first metric I'd jump to, but okay.
And again, why aren't we amazed by the dark, tasteless, unscented, colorless, and senseless soil which produces unique colors, unique tastes? Some being sour, some sweet.
Okay, to start with, soil that stuff is growing in is most definitely not tasteless, unscented, or colorless. Have you ever seen or interacted with soil? It seems like you haven't. But yeah, biochemistry is a thing. It's cool, it's interesting, it's got lots of complications and details and neat things to know about. The pathway from soil and of course air and water to whatever kind of fruit you're looking at there is not a simple one. And it's fascinating. That's why there's people who work in fields related to these questions. I find it neat, but I'm not going to lose my head over it. I'm not going to spend all day staring at my back garden and going, oh, whoa, ha, whoa, ha, what, ha, whoa, ha, wow, whoa. No, I got stuff to do. I have limited time in the day. Okay, if I want to know how plants absorb and use nutrients from the environment, I'll go read about it or start studying it. For the most part, I prioritize other things, personally. Just like you do, I doubt you've ever cracked open a biology textbook in your life, so you clearly don't have that much interest either. And I'm also reasonably confident saying that when you walk past an apple tree, your head doesn't explode.
Doesn't it amuse you that a juicy, delicious apple grows from this?
Yeah, it's hilarious. Stupid apple.
The actual problem is this. We always see the apple, and now we are accustomed to it, and when we get used to it, millions of miracles and proofs are passed from our sight, and the evidence is incomprehensible.
See, again, you're just kind of saying it's miracles. You're like, if you're not always amazed all the time by the existence of apples, you're not going to have that constant exploding brain syndrome that convinces you that the existence of apples has to be because of miracles. Okay, if you were amazed all the time, and you were utterly amazed by apples, that doesn't mean apples come from miracles. Amazing to you is not synonymous with miraculous. You would still have to support the claim. But I guess that's not the point. The point is you're being too goddamn reasonable about the question. If you're not in a constant state of babyish amazement every second of every day, you have time to employ reason. You have enough available bandwidth in your head that you can actually spend time thinking about stuff. And therefore, maybe because you're capable of a sliver of rational thought, you're at risk of becoming an atheist. Everything you're saying here makes the entire basis of your religion sound so bad. How are you not hearing this?
Whereas if you think about it, colors grow out of complete darkness. Out of the black earth grows a brown tree.
Okay, not that this is relevant or anything because you're completely ignoring how trees work, but the dirt you showed was basically the same color brown as the tree you showed. Not black.
And from that a green leaf, and then a red apple.
Okay, yeah. Apple cells contain different compounds than leaf cells, and those contain different compounds than wood cells. It's strange because it seems like you're thinking of the color itself as some sort of substance. Like the trunk of a tree is a barrel of brown, and a leaf is a container for green, and an apple is a ball of red. And so in the brown wood, there's no apple red. It only contains brownness, and so anything that it produces should also be brown. And so therefore it's a miracle when a leaf or an apple is not brown. But again, you're ignoring how a tree actually works. The trunk of a tree is not just a block of brown stuff from which only other brown stuff can emerge. The tree is a complex chemical system. Different cells in different parts of the plant have different compounds in them that result in them reflecting or absorbing different wavelengths of light. I guess I could try to go into a little more detail on that, but the problem is I actually don't know how to do that in a way that would be in any way effective. From what this guy just said, it doesn't seem like there's just one or two things that he's missing. It seems like he needs an entire crash course in what light is and how it works, what living cells are and how they work, what trees are and how they work, because it doesn't seem like he's shown any curiosity or interest in these things before. For all this talk of being constantly amazed by everything he sees, that doesn't appear to be what he's doing, because if you did that, you would be interested in the thing you're looking at. But he seems to just dumbly look at a tree and go, "Tree brown. Brown things have to make brown things." That's not amazement. That's not even a passing interest. That's just barely giving stuff a quick glance and then moving on.
In actuality, there is a creation that draws attention to great detail.
Based on what? Your passing glance at a tree one time? You don't even think soil has a taste or a color or a smell. You think a natural explanation for a tree could only mean that it could make brown parts. I'm not going to take your opinions on how the natural world works seriously.
But if you had never seen an apple before, then the apple would amaze you.
If I hadn't seen any fruit before, then maybe. But in that case, if I were really that amazed, I would be interested in learning something about it, not just making up half-assed one-sentence explanations off the top of my head and moving on. That's what amazement tends to do. It tends to cause actual curiosity, which is why people who can sustain some kind of enthusiasm for something and focus on it because they're so fascinated by it, oftentimes tend to work on studying that, learning about it, even just as a hobby. They don't just stop at, I don't know, trees make brown stuff and apples are red, so it's a miracle, whatever.
In reality, God introduces himself through the miracle of his creations. Those who adjust themselves from habit are able to see this.
Those who focus on ignoring all natural explanations for why apples are red and leaves are green, and instead focus on ignoring the reality of everything and only trying to see it all as a miracle, are able to do that. This does not seem like a useful pursuit, but have fun.
A second reason that prevents us from being astonished is thinking, I already know.
Oh, we're only on the second reason, are we? This is not going as fast as I would have liked. But wait, you said this is the second reason that keeps us from being astonished. But this video is called, "If you make these 3 mistakes, you might become an atheist." This isn't supposed to be a video about things that prevent you being astonished. It's supposed to be a video of things that risk you becoming an atheist. And I thought the first one was you get habituated to stuff and then you're not astonished anymore. But now it's a video of 3 reasons you might stop being astonished? Why am I even asking? Of course it's not going to make sense. This channel sucks.
If someone says this, that means they're no longer deeply mindful of the matter. The assumption of knowledge is the biggest obstacle that stands in the way of truth.
Oh, you mean like, I know why the apple's red and the leaf's green and the tree is brown? Because miracle! God done it! Final answer, I know it, absolutely certain, can't convince me otherwise, shut up. That kind of assumption of knowledge is the biggest obstacle that stands in the way of truth, presenter guy?
Even when facing something miraculous.
Oh, well, what if the assumption that you know it's something miraculous is standing in the way of truth? But yeah, that couldn't happen.
When you say, I already know, that means you're not even thoroughly looking anymore.
Man, you are so close to getting it, but I know it's not going to happen.
For example, think about an apple tree bearing melons. Wouldn't you be amazed?
Yeah.
Or if a bee made jam, we'd be so astonished that we'd publicize it on the news.
Yeah, because these things appear to go against the natural explanations we have for things. A fair amount of surprise would be quite justified, and then we'd have to come up with new explanations for how these new things are happening. We of course wouldn't jump to "it's a miracle," which based on what you've said so far, you seem to jump to not only for stuff like this, but for literally everything. But we'd say, here's something very, very novel. Let's see if we can figure out what's happening. But we haven't had to do that. The understanding of how apple trees work and how bees work is reasonably solid, and there's no God action required at any step of the way, in either case. And that's why people aren't so amazed that their brains fall out and they start calling it a miracle, because there's no need to invoke a miracle, because if you did not have an explanation, that would be irrational, to just leap to a random, unjustified conclusion. And if you do have an explanation, as we do, it would be even more irrational that God has to step in and paint the apples red.
We'd be astonished, just like a baby.
No, not just like a baby. We would have a clear understanding of why the situation is anomalous, what needs to be explained, how it relates to other things in the world, and we would have an intellectual curiosity about what's happening and why. That is not like a baby. If you actually respond to things like a baby does, you probably have a brain injury.
So why aren't we amazed when an apple tree makes an apple? Or when a bee makes honey?
We've already been over that. This is the same thing as before. Come on, keep it moving.
Why can't we perceive this as a miracle? This is normal. We know that an apple tree makes apples. It happens all the time. Or the bees fly around some flowers and produce honey. This is how it's done?
No. Again, the commonality of it is not why I don't perceive these things as miracles, acts of God. The reason I don't perceive them as acts of God is because you haven't presented evidence that they're acts of God. You've just said so. You're taking that as the default assumption. It's not. There is no default assumption. The default is no assumption. The default is, I don't know what's going on here, let's figure it out. But apparently, in your view, that's not even considered as a possibility. You either think it's a miracle or you're just not paying attention. Sorry, no, I'm paying attention. I see the apple tree. I see the bee. They're remarkable. They're really cool. In fact, I'm a really big fan of bees. In fact, they're probably my favorite animals. But they're cool is not synonymous with God did it. If you want to be right about stuff, you can't start just leaping to conclusions like that based on liking stuff, based on thinking it's neat. That doesn't make any sense. Not only does the argument not follow, there's no argument at all. The entire middle is missing. Look, premise 1, bees are neat. Premise 2, question mark, conclusion. Therefore, I am the king of the squirrels. Or anything else. You can plug anything in after the therefore and it'll work equally well. Do you see how that's not an argument, or at the very least, not a complete one? It's like a gutted fish. Yeah, okay, it's got the outside of a fish, but it doesn't have any of the parts that make it work.
Is saying all of these things learning, watching, or adapting?
Is saying apple trees make apples, it happens all the time, or bees fly around flowers and make honey, this is how it's done, watching, learning, or adapting? Well, no, it's speaking. But that speech is based on learning, watching, and adapting, yes. Not in great detail, of course, but still. Plus, it's based on more accurate learning, watching, and adapting than you implying that brown things make brown things unless there's a miracle. The apple trees make apples and bees make honey stuff is a whole lot more realistic. Do better.
Or think about it. If every time you rubbed your hands together, an orange appeared, would this be a miracle?
I don't know. It hasn't happened. We haven't had the opportunity to study it. Let me know when it happens and I'll put together a crew to come take a look. I won't be holding my breath though. I'll go on to other things in the meantime. I hope you understand.
If this happened every day, you wouldn't be amazed anymore. You'd say, this is normal.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't be amazed anymore, but I'd still be curious what the hell's happening. And if it didn't happen every day, if it only happened once, I would not jump to the miracle conclusion. Let's not be idiots here.
If someone asked you, so how does this happen? And you reply, we just rub our hands together and an orange comes out. So would this be learning, or would it be adjustment and habit?
Neither. It'd be a shitty non-explanation. Just like if you said, I don't know, it's a miracle. In both cases, it's a shrug and a non-answer, and I'm not going to accept that.
Of course, it'd be a habit.
What? No. Habit is not just another word for bad explanation.
What's the difference between an orange coming out of your hand and an orange that has been prepackaged, given color, and scent which comes out of a piece of wood?
The fact that one actually happens and is adequately explained by tree biology, while the other one hasn't happened and isn't explained at all because it hasn't happened. Now, if you live in an era before any explanation is available for how oranges are produced by trees, I could easily understand you looking at these two possibilities and thinking these could be very much equivalent. Maybe with the right prompting, an orange can grow out of a human hand the same way it grows out of a tree. Maybe. I don't know. I got no idea what's going on in either case. It still would not be valid to jump to, it's a miracle because I say so. That's still utterly unjustified. But to think it could be possible that an orange could grow out of other organisms other than orange trees with the right input, that's not really unreasonable. Not when you lack pretty much all understanding of biology. If you said it can happen as opposed to maybe it's possible, that would be irrational. That would be jumping the gun, making things up. It'd be almost as bad as saying it's a miracle, and I say almost as bad because it involves making fewer assumptions and invoking fewer entities. So it's not as bad, but it's still pretty bad. But we don't live in that world. Orange trees are not the grand mysteries they once were. So to act as if an orange popping out of a human hand and an orange growing out of an orange tree are equally bizarre and inexplicable is just stupid.
Isn't that also an astounding miracle?
No, or at least I doubt it. Can you provide any evidence of what you're saying? This incredible claim you're making? Well, no, of course not, because the evidence is just you say so. You like that answer, and you're telling me that's the answer, and so that's the answer. If you like that answer, you keep it. Not interested. Not till you can show your work.
When asked how, and the answer is, we have learned. It just comes out of the wood. This isn't learning. It's habitual.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing the scientific understanding of how fruit grows from trees is not just, it just comes out of the wood. I agree that answer would not be based on learning because really it's not even an answer at all. It's just repeating the question. But again, that's not what we're dealing with. Stop bullshitting.
Just think, even the toys they put in chocolate eggs. We are certain that there is someone who places them inside. Then how can we forget that there is a God who repetitively sustains adorable yet living chicks inside the eggs?
People make chocolate eggs, therefore God makes chickens inside chicken eggs. Again, it's a gutted fish of an argument. I mean, yeah, at least they both have the word egg in them. Premise 1, people put toys in chocolate eggs. Premise 2, question mark. Conclusion, therefore God puts chickens in chicken eggs. What? Where's the argument? There's no argument there. There's nothing there. A God performing actions on chicken eggs does not logically follow from a human performing an action on a chocolate egg. These two things have nothing to do with each other. Again, except the word egg. Well, I can do that too. Premise 1, humans eat eggs. Premise 2, question mark. Conclusion, therefore eggs come from the moon. Well, I see the word egg in 2 places, so that checks out.
God made his creation so that we may look and reflect upon them.
Because you said so.
How can we relate this to materials, coincidence, and atoms?
Well, going back to the tree, since that's the one we spent the most time on, it's not really about coincidence, but materials and atoms. That's the entire basis of the question. We're talking about how different parts of the tree have different types of materials that reflect different wavelengths of light and produce different kinds of cells in different locations. How is it not related to materials and atoms? The question is, here we have this thing made of materials and atoms. How'd they get that way? And you're like, bah, how can you even relate this question to materials and atoms?
On top of that, we say, we have learned.
Okay.
This is our formula. We must ask, the events and object that we consider ourselves competent in, do they have capability or talent?
What, like a tree? Does a tree have capability or talent? Yeah, in a manner of speaking, sure. There's a lot of stuff that trees are really, really good at doing. Obviously, it doesn't have a brain. It's not willing action, but that's not really relevant to the outcome.
Do they have knowledge, will, power, or life?
Trees? Yeah, they have the last 2, I would say. I don't exactly know what you mean by power, but just by my understanding of that word, I would say yes on that one. And life, obviously yes.
We must recognize they don't have any capabilities and go from there.
No. You just crossed out that trees are alive. Do I have to pull it out again?
Why don't you come with me to the library? I can recommend a great book called Are Trees Alive by Debbie S. Miller. Spoiler alert! Yes!
Lastly, there's one more obstacle that prevents us from noticing miracles. Naming.
Oh, now it's a video about obstacles that prevent us from noticing miracles. So first it was 3 mistakes that might make you an atheist. Then it was reasons you might stop being astonished, and now it's this. You couldn't have made up your mind at the start?
When we put names and titles to our every affair, it's like we solve them for ourselves and fail to remember God among these events.
What if you name and title everything a miracle? But right, you think miracles are the right answer, and so it's okay to do it then. See something in the world that you don't understand, just slap the name miracle on it and move on. Problem solved.
In fact, the names of all the events that occur in the universe are just in the manner God operates this universe.
I have no idea what that means. Can you explain?
This is called Adatullah. For example, the way the raindrops fall one by one, or the way we see the clouds water the earth. This has been named the water cycle. It feels like now that we name this process water cycle, we've solved it.
No. It's not the naming that solves it. It's the solving it that solves it. And then you name the solution.
And we don't need to think or reflect on this any longer.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you name it or don't name it. If you have a reliable explanation for how it works, then you have it. The name is not relevant. That's just a shorthand to talk about it. And you're more than welcome to keep thinking and reflecting on the water cycle, but I don't think people are going to really be impressed when you keep saying, it's a miracle, 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 miracle.
But in reality, we need to think beyond the name we've given it. How and why does this cycle occur?
Yeah, that's what I mean by the solving it part. That's why I say that if you slap a name on it, like water cycle or miracle, you haven't solved shit. You have to actually solve the problem, which is what the actual research and explanation of the water cycle does. It's like you're looking at the cover of a book called The Water Cycle, and you go, well, that's not an explanation. I don't understand anything from reading this title. Then open the book. That's what it's for. The title is not the explanation. It's just a name. It's a way to refer to the thing being explained.
How does a drop of water turn into condensation? Conveniently, it turns into a cloud that's ready to carry water everywhere easily. It can then turn from a cloud and form into water droplets.
And you asked how that happens, how condensation works. Okay, you're holding the book called The Water Cycle. Just open it and look at the table of contents and then find the relevant section and go read it. You're acting as if this question is being ignored, like nobody beyond the religious people looking for miracles ever thought to ask it. Your attitude towards scientific information is very weird.
Well, who is behind all this craftsmanship?
Well, that's not a loaded question at all. Asserting within the question itself that it has to be a who.
Every second, who controls and has the tendency to decide 16 million droplets hitting the ground every second?
You need to fire your translator.
Who gathers the mindless, senseless clouds and pushes them in the direction they need to go? Who evaporates the water, changing its form and turns it into a fluffy cloud and floats it in the sky? Who compresses the fluffy cloud like a sponge, then sends it to Earth with utmost mercy?
Whoa. Look, obviously this is all nonsense. All these questions are just designed to assert that you know it's a who, despite the fact that you have no reason to think that, no evidence of it. You're on purpose asking questions loaded with the assumption that you're right. Total trash, I don't even need to address that part of it. But who compresses the fluffy cloud like a sponge? That's not a translation issue. That's how you think clouds work. Wow. That's all I had to say. Go on.
Who evaporates the water, changing its form?
You already said that one. You need to fire your writer, too.
And floats it like a fluffy cloud in the sky.
You already said that one, too. You might be trying to do some kind of a repetitive thing to represent the water cycle being a cycle. You know, maybe it's sort of meant to be artistic that way. It's possible. I guess I'm just past the point of giving you the benefit of the doubt on anything.
Who is the one who holds the clouds in the sky and sends down the rain with utmost mercy? Who makes the rain fall down in single droplets? Who divides the water within 7mm droplets?
Oddly specific. Also wildly inaccurate, typically.
Who gently slows them as they fall from the sky? Is it the atoms who have no knowledge?
Yes. In all of those cases, the answer is yes. You can't even hide behind the complexity of biology anymore. Now you're just taking relatively simple stuff like evaporation and condensation and air resistance and saying, well, how could these atoms that don't know what they're doing possibly do this stuff? What do you mean? Why wouldn't they? This is the stuff atoms do. It's the nature of what they are. They can do no other.
Is it the atoms who have no knowledge, will, or choice, not even mercy or life? Or is it the clouds or the water itself who's doing all this work?
Yep, it's that stuff, yep. Now you might want to say, well, somebody made them work like that. Well, okay, prove it. But regardless, they work like that. So yeah, it's them doing it.
All this miraculous cycle. Using names like the water cycle, we shouldn't limit our stream of thoughts.
No, of course, we shouldn't limit our stream of thoughts with names like the water cycle. We should limit our stream of thoughts with names like miracle. Because even though that name miracle is far less meaningful or useful, or based in evidence for that matter, you find it nice.
God's existence is evident in every detail, just like the sun.
Okay, I don't know what that comment about the sun is supposed to mean. You move on really quickly right afterwards. Sounds ominously close to sun worship. I'm gonna assume that's not what that's meant to be.
Let's not forget that these names just show us how God controls the universe, how he controls the atoms. If we can discard ourselves of these habits, the assumption that we know everything, and avoid drowning in the names that we've given things, we can easily find God everywhere.
So if we can avoid the assumption that we know everything, then we can easily find God everywhere. And then assume that we know everything despite saying we don't want to do that, except now we just say it's God instead of saying it's the water cycle. So reject the name the water cycle because it doesn't include God, and then just say it's the same thing anyway, except with a bunch of extra stuff going on that's in no way indicated by reality. Great. How not pointless?
Yes, there is the Creator who sees and takes measure of everything behind the scenes, who possesses knowledge, will, power, and life. It takes great wisdom to have proficiency. Objects don't possess proficiency or knowledge. That means that God is the one that controls these matters and sees everything.
Proficiency or knowledge? Water molecules don't have proficiency or knowledge. Nobody's saying they do. These things are not required for evaporation and condensation. That's kind of the point. What are you even... Never mind, you know what? We're close to the end. There's nothing else that I really want to address in this video. I think I'm done. And wow, that was bad. I mean, when I picked it, I knew it was bad. I just didn't know it was that bad. It was, it was really bad. Huh. Wow, I'm surprised I got through that as level-headed as I did. Maybe I'm just in a good mood, I don't know. Well, thank you for watching. If you would, before you go, please give the video a like and click subscribe if you haven't. And if you like the channel, please do consider supporting. Even a small amount helps hugely, and big thanks to all of my supporters who've already made that choice. For early access, sign up to the email list, list.logicked.com, and I'll see you next time.
You got me.